Hey everyone, I hope you're well. This is the story about what if Naruto was master of the forbidden jutsu Jiongu. Before we start, please subscribe to the channel and like the video as well. So without any further ado, let's start the what if. Academy. So where do we have to go again? Naruto asked as he and his team walked into the academy. To room 301, that's where Kurenai-sensei said the first part of the exams were, Hinata told him as she opened the door of the building. The team walked in and went up the flight of stairs and saw a crowd of people gathered around a door that said 301. 2 genin were guarding the door. They had knocked down another genin who was wearing a green spandex suit with orange leg warmers. What caught Naruto's attention was the shiny bowl of hair on his head, and the thick eyebrows. Naruto swore that they moved on their own. Please let us pass, the genin cried as his teammate, who Team 8 recognized as Tenten, helped him up. We're helping you genin. These exams are tougher than you think, one of the older genin said. Yeah, if you can't beat us, then you have no chance passing the first stage, his partner said. Aren't we on the second floor? Naruto whispered. Yes, there's a genjutsu over the door, Hinata whispered back. The team then inched their way to the next flight of stairs to avoid detection. Drop the genjutsu, a snobby voice demanded. Team 8 looked back and groaned when they saw Sasuke standing there with a superior smirk. The sign on the door changed from 301 to 201. Great, that idiot messed up everything. Now we're going to have more competition, Kiba complained as he walked in with Sakura, who bashed him in the head for what he said. Sasuke then went to attack the older genin when the boy in spandex leapt up and blocked all of them. Lee! I thought you wanted to hide your skills from everyone. Tenten yelled. My apologies Tenten, but I could not allow this unyouthful conduct continue. Lee shouted as he stood up again. Fast! I barely saw him move. Naruto thought. And I can see that he wasn't even putting any effort into that, Kyubi said, slightly impressed. Naruto's eyebrows shot up at that, this guy was someone to be careful around. TCH, how foolish, the third teammate, Niji, said as he looked at Lee with disgust in his eyes. He then turned to Sasuke and narrowed his eyes. Uchiha. Hyuga. The two stared at each other for what seemed like a while before they huffed and turned away. Meanwhile, Lee was staring intently at Sakura with hearts in his eyes, creeping her out. Are you Sakura Haruno? Lee asked. Yes, why? The pinkette asked as she stared at Lee curiously. I am Rock Lee, please be my girlfriend, Lee asked as he smiled at her, teeth shining, and there was a small ping that sounded when the light reflected off of them. Why would anyone want to date her of all females? Kiba thought. I'm guessing that he never heard about how annoying she was, Shino thought. Lee, what is wrong with you? Tenten asked her herself. I remember the times Hinata-sama would complain about this classmate, I suppose Lee never heard those stories, Niji realized. Lee, run away while you can, Hinata pleaded. Oh boy, this won't end well, Naruto thought, the Kyubi nodding in agreement. No way. You're a freak. Sakura screeched. Lee was stunned for a moment before he smiled again. I see that your heart is already won over by another, no matter. I shall prove that I am superior to this competitor for your heart. Lee declared. Oh boy, was the collective thought of most of the Konoha group. Team 8 then fled for the stairs and went upstairs. Naruto told them to wait and went to get a quick drink of water. Hearing some people on the area below them, they looked down to see Team 7 walking. Please wait up. Lee shouted as he ran forward towards the 3 genin. What do you want? Sasuke demanded. You are Sasuke Uchiha, correct? Lee asked. That's right, he confirmed. Then I challenge you to a battle here and now, Lee declared. Now this I gotta see, Naruto said as he and his team stood on the upper level and stared down at the 4. So you know who I am, yet you're still challenging me to a fight? You must be confident, Sasuke smirked. But Sasuke-kun, we have to go to the examination room before it's too late. Sakura tried to tell him. Lee narrowed his eyes for a moment and said, I see, so you are the one who had captured the heart of the lovely Sakura. No matter. I shall defeat you and win her heart. He then winked at her and somehow shot a heart at her. Sakura screamed in terror and hastily dodged the heart as it hit the wall behind her. Lee shot out more hearts and Sakura dodged them like they were poisoned kunai. Naruto and Kiba rolling on the floor laughter, Hinata was giggling at the sight, and Shino was quietly chuckling. Gah! What are you, crazy? Do you have any idea how dangerous that was? Sakura growled. Dangerous? Hee hee, yeah right, Naruto giggled. I often wonder if the academy lowered their standards when we were there, Shino muttered low enough so that his team could hear. Sasuke and Lee then crouched low and entered their own fighting stances. Sasuke with the Uchiha's interceptor fist, and Lee with the Goken. Sasuke rushed forward and threw a punch at Lee, who vanished instantly. Everyone's eyes widened and Naruto discreetly activated his Sharingan, thankful for Kakashi teaching him a genjutsu to hide it while he had it active. Konoha Senpu. Lee cried as he threw a kick at Sasuke, who dodged it. Lee then followed up with another kick while standing on his hand. Sasuke tried to block it but was too slow and ended up getting kicked in the cheek. Sasuke-kun. Sakura cried as the Uchiha was sent flying, skidding across the ground. He's fast. Hinata whispered. Very, and my insects say that he isn't using any chakra in his attacks, Shino whispered back. Naruto just stood there, observing the clearly one-sided fight. Sasuke weakly got up and glared at Lee, activating his Sharingan. With these eyes, you don't stand a chance, Sasuke declared, smirking cockily. I see, so that is the famous Sharingan, Lee muttered. No matter, it won't help you here. Sasuke dashed forward once again and received a kick in the chin from Lee, sending him flying. Everyone was shocked, they never expected to see that Sasuke would be beaten that easily, even with the Sharingan at his aid. As you can see, my technique is purely taijutsu, there is no ninjutsu or genjutsu involved in this, Lee said as he and Sasuke rushed at each other once again, trading blows, all while Lee kept hitting Sasuke whenever his guard was down. After receiving a vicious hit to the gut, Sasuke backed away while glaring at Lee. He then rushed at him again, throwing punches while Lee merely dodged all of them before kicking him into the air. Lee appeared behind the airborne Sasuke. His bandages around his arms then unraveled and began to wrap around Sasuke. Suddenly, a pinwheel shot through the air and pierced the bandage against the wall, throwing Lee off course and separating him from Sasuke. Sasuke fell and Sakura caught him, much to the Uchiha's displeasure. Lee managed to right himself as he landed in front of a turtle. Yes, a giant turtle. One that was mainly red with yellow marking along its body, and a Konoha headband tied around its neck. Lee! You swore never to use that move against a fellow Konoha ninja, the turtle scolded. Is that a summon? Naruto asked. Well, they are the only species of animals that can talk, Hinata pointed out. It's time for your punishment, the turtle shouted as a cloud of smoke erupted from the turtle's back. When it cleared, an older version of Lee stood there, except this one was wearing a Jonin vest. Everyone was creeped out by their likeness, not to mention the weirdness that was oozing off of him. Lee, you fool, the man yelled. Lee cringed and bowed before the man. Please forgive me, Guy-sensei. Lee pleaded. Silence. Guy thundered. Prepare to take your punishment like a man, he then punched Lee and sent him flying, much to everyone's shock. Guy then approached Lee with tears running out of his eyes, Lee looked up at him with tears as well. Lee! Ji-sensei! Lee! Ji-sensei! The two then hugged as an image of the sunset appeared behind them. Thinking that it was a genjutsu, Team 8 desperately tried to dispel it. What is this? Naruto asked as he kept trying to dispel it. This is worse than the time the Rokubi had diarrhea. Kyubi cried as he closed his eyes tight. Naruto-kun, please tell me it's over, Hinata whimpered. Never before has she seen anything so disturbing. Not even a living skeleton could frighten her over this. Shino then pulled the two away towards the stairs, where he led them towards the examination room. Why did you do that, Shino? Naruto asked. I had noticed that he was speaking with Team 7, so in an attempt to prevent that Jonin from approaching us, I dragged you two here, Shino explained. I see that you've met Guy, Kurenai said as she appeared before them. Kurenai-sensei. Why are you here? Hinata asked. To wish you three good luck. There are a lot of tough genin in there. But I have complete confidence in you guys, Kurenai said before she moved away, allowing Team 8 passage into the room. The trio nodded in agreement and walked into the room. Kurenai smiled and vanished in a puff of smoke. Team 8 entered the room, and were greeted with the hardened glares of multiple older genin, each from different villages, and some from their own. HMP. This is KI. Kit, I want you to release some of my KI and show them that they should be afraid of you, Kyubi said. Naruto smirked and let out a large amount of KI, flooding the room in the powerful bloodlust. Everyone turned away from Naruto except for several people. Gaara, who was grinning madly, a female Kyumo ninja, and Fu, who was smirking at Naruto's actions. Man Naruto, why do you have to be so troublesome? Shikamaru asked as he and the rest of his team walked up to them. Naruto grinned and replied, it's just a part of my nature. Choji chuckled and said, got that right. Hey guys, have you seen Sasuke-kun anywhere? Ino asked. Last time I saw him, he was getting his butt kicked around by an older genin, Hinata said. Whoa! Hinata, you didn't stutter. Choji exclaimed. Our last mission helped Hinata change, all we have to work on now is her fainting, Shino said. Just then, Team 7 walked in, and Sasuke had a nasty bruise on his cheek, courtesy of Lee's heavy hit. Sasuke-kun! Ino cried as she leapt onto his back. Get off of him, Ino pig! Sakura screeched. Ino just stuck her tongue out in response and continued to glomp the Uchiha. Shikamaru just sighed and muttered about how troublesome she was. After managing to get Ino off of Sasuke, Kiba said to everyone, have you guys heard? A bunch of people are calling us the Rookie 9. Why? Choji asked. It's because we're the only people in these exams who have been out of the academy the shortest, Kiba replied. Makes sense, Shikamaru muttered. After he said that, an older Konoha ninja wearing a purple outfit approached them. He had silver hair and was wearing glasses. Hey, you guys might want to keep it down, you're making yourselves targets with your attitude, he said. Naruto heard the Kyubi growling in his mind. What's wrong? Naruto asked. Be wary of this one, he smells of snakes, Kyubi growled, and not the domestic kind. Naruto nodded and watched as that ninja introduced himself as Kabuto Yakushi. He then pulled out a deck of cards and explained that they were ninja info cards. Give me info on Rock Lee of Konoha, Gaara Sabaku of Suna, and Naruto Uzumaki of Konoha, Sasuke demanded. The rest of the Rookie 9, except the two fangirls, raised an eyebrow at that last selection. You already know their names, that's no fun, Kabuto said as he pulled out 3 cards and channeled chakra into them. First up we have Rock Lee, a genin of Konoha. He's on a team with Tenten Higurashi and Niji Hyuga, under the tutelage of Mato Guy. His ninjutsu and genjutsu are practically non-existent, but his taijutsu is off the charts. Next we have Gaara Sabaku, a genin of Suna. He's the youngest child of the Kazekage, and on a team with his older siblings, Temari and Kankuro, and taught by their sensei Baki. It's been said that he's completed several C-rank missions without even getting a scratch. Most likely the result of the Ichibi's Suna no Tate, he grants that protective ability to all of his hosts, Kyubi explained. The only way to beat that is to either be faster than the Sand, or to use an attack that can completely pierce through it. And finally, Naruto Uzumaki, also a genin of Konoha. He's on Team 8 with Hinata Hyuga and Shino Aburame, and taught by Kurina Yuhi, a newly promoted jonin. His weapon of choice are two clawed gauntlets, and it's been rumored that he has a powerful jutsu. Naruto narrowed his eyes slightly, knowing what he was talking about. He was shaken out of his thoughts when Sasuke stomped up to him and glared Naruto in the eye. "Teach me that jutsu," Sasuke demanded. Naruto glared back and said, "No, this jutsu isn't something for you anyway." Sasuke huffed and walked away from the Jinchuriki, clearly angry. "Even though there are a lot of people in these exams, you guys won't have to worry about the ones from Otogakure," Kabuto told them. "They're a new village and it's their first time in the exams, so they probably aren't all that tough." After he said that, 3 blurs flew through the crowd and aimed towards Kabuto, revealing themselves to be 3 Oto ninja. The first one had spiky black hair and a forehead protector styled after the Sandaime Hokage's own headband. The second one was female and had long black hair. But the last one was wrapped in bandages, save for his left eye, and was wearing a large furry coat. Each one had some form of snakeskin on their clothing. The mummy threw a punch at Kabuto, and he dodged it with a smirk on his face. Until his glasses broke and he vomited on the floor. Hinata and Ino ran over to see if he was okay while Naruto tried to get the ringing out of his ears. What was that? That frickin' hurt," Naruto thought. Sound waves were somehow created by that guy, Kyubi explained while he was rubbing his ear. "You might have a hard time against that guy because of my enhanced hearing. Write this down in you cards, the Oto ninja are going to become Chunin," the one with spiky hair declared. A large puff of smoke appeared in the middle of the room, catching everyone's attention. There was a large man, large as in tall and muscular, there who wore a large black trench coat. He had a bandana on his head that served as his headband. There were 2 scars on his face, one going from right next to his left eye down to his chin, and another going from under the right eye to his neck. "Shut up you maggots," the man bellowed. "You Oto ninja in the back. Do you want to get kicked out of these exams before they even begin?" "Hee, sorry, we're just a little jumpy," the mummy said. The jonin glared at him before he turned to the rest of the examinees and said, "There will be no fighting in this portion of the exams. Now everyone hand in your forms and the proctors will show you where you will be sitting for the written portion of the Chunin exams." Everyone handed in their forms and were shown to their seats. Naruto sat down and looked to his left. There was a Kusa ninja with red hair and glasses that intrigued him somewhat. "Red hair, for some reason I feel a numbing sensation in the back of my head," Naruto thought. The Kyubi laid down and began to think about what that was. He had a theory, but didn't want to jump to conclusions just yet. Naruto then looked to his right and smiled as he saw Hinata sitting next to him. She smiled back and they wished each other good luck. "I am Ibiki Marino, the head proctor of this exam. For this portion you will all be given a written test that contains 9 questions, the 10th one will be given at the end of the time limit. Now before we begin, there are several rules that need to be said." "Rules?" Kiba asked. "Yes, first off, everyone starts with 10 points. You will lose a point for every question you get wrong. So if you miss 2 questions, your final score will be 8, Ibiki explained. Rule number 2, teams will pass or fail based on the collective score of all 3 members. So if one team member fails, so does the rest of the team." "I'm screwed," Kiba wailed. He began to sweat as Sasuke and Sakura glared holes in the back of his head. Akamaru whimpered when he felt the glares his partner was receiving. Rule number 3, whenever a proctor sees you cheating, he will deduct 2 points from your score. Their eyes are extremely sharp, and if they catch you 5 times, you and your team will be kicked out of these exams. So if you get caught cheating 5 times, you lose, Naruto pondered. Something about this doesn't make sense. Why would they make a rule like that? Wouldn't it be easier if they just kicked the people out if they caught them cheating? Unless they want us to cheat. I was wondering when you would get it, Kyubi said. I think I understand the whole point of this exam. They want us to cheat, but in a way that we won't get caught, Naruto realized. Now begin. Ibiki shouted. Almost immediately, all of the examinees picked up their pencils and began to look at the test. Every one of them realized something the second they looked at the questions. These were highly advanced questions. Sasuke, Hinata, and Niji were using their Jujutsu to cheat. Sasuke was copying the hand movements of the person in front of him and to the left. Hinata and Niji used the Byakugan to look at the answers of others. Gaara had closed one eye and created a ball of sand that turned into an eyeball that was observing the papers from above. Kiba had Akamaru perched on his head and the tiny dog was looking around while softly barking answers to Kiba, who wrote them down eagerly. Tenten was manipulating a set of mirrors above her to reveal the answers to her. Lee adjusted his headband to allow him to see the mirrors as well. "Excuse me, Proctor, can I go to the bathroom?" Kankuro asked. A proctor handcuffed himself to the Tsunagenin and lead him out of the room. Naruto raised an eyebrow, but couldn't find anything wrong with the event. Shikamaru was using his Kage-main to connect him and Choji while he wrote down the answers for both of them. Sakura was using her own knowledge to answer the questions, and Ino used her mind transfer jutsu to take over the Pinkette and steal her answers. But before she went back to her own body, she messed up Sakura's test. She erased all of her answers and wrote down ridiculous ones, and changed the name on the top to forehead. When she left and Sakura came back, she looked down and looked like she was about to explode, but a glare from Ibiki silenced her. Fu and Shino were doing something similar, even though they didn't know it. Shino was using his family's insects to scout others' tests and get answers from them. Fu could always communicate with insects thanks to the nanobai, even though she never knew it was because of the bijou. She was able to use her own horned beetles to gather information. The Oto Genin were using the sounds of the pencils as they were being used to help them get the answers that they needed. Naruto was lost in how to cheat. Sure, he could use his Sharingan to copy someone, but that wouldn't be very original according to him. After a minute of thinking, he was struck with inspiration when he saw Gaara's Sandaime. He slowly brought his hands together under the desk and formed a few hand seals. Suddenly, a kunai flew through the air and passed right by his head, making him freeze. The kunai impacted against the desk behind him. "Number 47, you've been caught 5 times, you and your teammates 6, 5 and 18 are gone," a proctor stated as he stared at the Suna ninja. "And what proof do you have that I was cheating?" the genin demanded. A nearby proctor dashed forward and slammed the ninja onto the table while twisting his arm backwards. "Don't question us. You were making it so obvious, an academy student could figure it out," the proctor growled as he forced the genin to his feet and dragged him out the room, his teammates following. Naruto calmed down and began to focus again. All the while, other examinees were being sent out of the room for being caught. Fox's mask slowly slid off of his back and trailed down his leg, out of sight from the proctors. Hinata saw what he was doing and focused her attention on Naruto since she had already finished her own test. Several threads dug a tunnel under his desk and the mask went into it as the threads continued digging a tunnel under the ground, up the wall, and across the ceiling. The threads carefully dug through the ceiling and picked away any part of it that would fall off before Fox popped through the hole they made. Naruto then closed his eye and focused his chakra carefully. Out of Fox's right eye hole, the ghostly image of an eye appeared and looked around. Naruto grinned as he focused in on Shikamaru's test, knowing that he was a genius in disguise, and began to write down his answers. Hinata was amazed at Naruto's actions, never thinking that he was able to do this. "Pencils down. It's time for the final question," Ibiki announced, breaking the tension in the room. As he was talking, Naruto quickly had Fox come back into his body. "However, before I give you all the question, there is another rule." "Is he making these up as he goes along?" Naruto asked Kyubi, who just shrugged. Just then, Kankuro and the proctor walked back in. "Ah, just in time for the final question. I hope your trip was enlightening," Ibiki said as he watched the Tsunagenin. "Crap. He knows about Crow." Kankuro panicked. As he walked by Temari, he subtly passed her a crumpled piece of paper. "This rule is a hopeless rule," Ibiki said, much to everyone's confusion. "What do you mean by that?" Temari asked. Ibiki smirked and explained, "What I mean is that you all have a choice to decide if you want to answer this question or not. What happens if we choose not to take it?" Hamaguri asked. "It's really simple," the special Jonin began. "I deduct your score to 0, failing you and your entire team." This made everyone gasp, barring the more stoic ones such as Niji and Gaara. "Then of course, we'll take it," Kiba yelled, Akamaru barking in agreement. Ibiki simply chuckled darkly, much to everyone's confusion. "You'll say that right now, but when I tell you the other rule, you might think again," Ibiki told him. "If you decide to take this question, but fail to answer it correctly, then you will be forbidden from taking the Chunin exams ever again." Much to his expectation, there were a lot of protests. "That is a most unyouthful rule," Lee cried out. "What kind of rule is that?" the redhead next to Naruto yelled. Now that he looked at her more closely, she kind of resembled Kushina, in the temper department at least. There were many other protests as well. "You guys are unlucky this year," Ibiki coldly said. "This year, I'm in charge of the first exam, so I make the rules. If you don't have the guts to take this question, then I'll be a nice guy and allow you to leave. But remember this, the choice is yours to make. If you want to leave, then simply raise your hand. I want to become a Chunin and make my family proud, but if I fail then I'll stay a Genin," Hinata thought. "But if I quit now, I'll be ruining the exams for Shino-kun and Naruto-kun. I don't know what to do." She looked around and saw that Shino was sitting straighter than usual, a sign she learned that he was slightly nervous. She looked at Naruto and saw him sitting there silently as his hair covered his eyes. "I can't do it." "I'm sorry guys," a Genin said as he slowly stood up. Number 54 fails, numbers 62 and 103 fail as well, a proctor stated as the Genin left the room. Soon after, other Genin began to give up as well, slowly clearing out the room. Naruto looked over and saw Hinata struggling with herself. Even though Hinata had gained a boost in confidence, situations like these would always make her conflict with her old nervous personality. "What's the matter?" Ibiki asked with false sincerity as he looked at Naruto. "You seem nervous." "Don't be, just tell me if you're going to quit or not, unless you want to risk being banned from these exams. Can you take the shame of all that and stay a Genin while everyone else could be promoted to Chunin?" Naruto glared at him and raised up his and before balling it into a fist and slamming it against the table with so much force there was a spiderweb crack in the wood. "I don't care if I'll be banned from taking these exams anymore." Naruto began, "If I give up here and now then it goes against everything I live for. Even if I fail here, I'll just work harder so that the Hokage had no choice but to give me a field promotion. So go ahead, fail me, but know this, I'll never give up on accomplishing my goals." Naruto's speech seemed to install confidence into everyone as they seemed to lose their nervousness that they had. Hinata smiled and prepared to share Naruto's fate. She reached under the table and grabbed his hand. His eyes flicked over for a moment before a small, unnoticeable smile graced his lips. "Definitely an Uzumaki, only they have courage as great as that," Shujin thought with a small smile, one that seemed to contain hope for some reason. Inside the seal, the Kyuubi smirked at Naruto's actions. He expected this from Kushina's son, especially since they were so similar in personality. Ibiki then looked over the rest of the examinees. Incredible, he thought. He managed to erase everyone's doubt with one little speech. "Looks like nobody else is giving up, time to get this show on the road. If nobody else is going to leave then I have only one thing to say to all of you," Ibiki said. Everyone was on the edge of their seats, waiting for Ibiki to give them the last question. "Congratulations on passing the first exam." "What?" was the collective shout of everyone, sans Gaara who could care less. "What about the 10th question?" Sakura screeched, making everyone who was in close proximity to her lose their hearing for a moment. There was no 10th question to begin with, Ibiki said with a grin. You could say that the 10th question was your choice on deciding to take it or not. Wait a minute. Temari shouted. Then what was with the rest of the questions? Was it all pointless? No, they served their purpose, Ibiki told her. The original purpose of the test was to pressure everyone with the first rule, the rule about the total team score. It forced everyone not to mess up for their team. I'm sure that you all noticed that they were questions that no mere genin could answer. So I'm sure that you all came up with the same solution to pass. You would have to cheat to get them. The whole point of this test was to make you cheat. To make it easier for you to get points, we had 2 chunin among your group to give you the answers if you were able to cheat off of them. I assume that you are all wondering why the first exam was formatted like this. I will explain. In a chunin mission, you may have to gather information to help your team succeed. This exam was a sort of training exercise so you would prepare for those type of situations. Getting the wrong information, however, could lead to disastrous results that could cost you and your team your lives. The special Jonin then reached up and began to untie his bandana. Or worse. When the bandana came off, many people looked disgusted at the sight. Ibiki's head was bald and covered in many burn marks and screw holes. What the hell? Naruto thought. Hinata gripped his hand tightly, very uncomfortable with the sight. Ibiki then retied his bandana after he was sure that everyone got a good look at his head. This is what could happen if you gather the wrong info. Not only could you suffer wounds like these, but you could also be forced to reveal the secrets of your village because the pain may be too great. But the real purpose of the test was the final question. What do you mean? Hinata asked. The 10th question was a to take or don't take situation. If you choose not to take it, you will fail and take your team down with you. But on the other hand, if you did take the question, but answer incorrectly, then you would never be able to take another chunin exam. The whole thing was a leap of faith. The trash who came in here decided to take the easy way out and leave, thinking that there would be another chance. In the real world, there are no second chances to every situation. The final question tested you on your resolve. Let's say that you were a chunin and sent on a mission to gather information on the status of another village. You have no idea about the layout of the village, nor do you have the information about the shinobi there. You also have to suspect that there might be traps in the area. Do you simply reject the mission because it's too dangerous, or because your friends and teammates may get hurt? To put it selfishly, you're afraid of dying. Allow me to tell you something, there are missions with a high level of risk that you can't simply decline. It's understandable if these tasks can be emotionally challenging, but a chunin must show courage when needed. What you did here today proved that you were able to make a decision that a chunin would be able to make in a heartbeat. The first exam is officially over. I wish all of you good luck in the next part. Everyone who expressed their emotions were either smiling or smirking. Naruto and Hinata grinned at each other. 5, 4, Ibiki began. Suddenly, the window exploded as a large bundle flew through the air and unfurled as it was held in place by 4 kunai, holding up the banner. Teammate then shivered as Enko came flying in. There's no time to be happy, she declared. I am the proctor of the second exam, Enko Mitarashi. She then punched her fist in the air. Everyone follow me. Naruto quickly made 2 clones and they scribbled something on paper before they lifted them up. 2 clones had written a 10 on the paper while the real one was holding up a 6. Why are you giving me a 26? Enko demanded. 10 for the entrance, one clone said. 10 for the small speech, the other one said. 6 because you got glass all over me. Naruto yelled. Enko just stuck her tongue out at him and pouted. You're early, Enko, take a look around, Ibiki said as he came around the banner. Enko then looked around the room and her eyes widened. 78 Genin Ibiki. You let 26 teams pass. Are you getting soft in your old age? Enko questioned as she turned to the scarred man. Ibiki smirked and said, maybe we just have a talented bunch this year. Whatever, by the time I'm done with them, there will be less than half of them left. Anko declared while giving the group a predatory smirk that unnerved most of the genin. Now follow me to training ground 44. If you're late you'll be sorry. Anko yelled as she jumped out of the window. After a second or two to collect their thoughts, most of the genin ran out of the door while others grabbed their teammates and used a shunshin to take them to the next exam. Naruto grabbed Hinata and quickly jumped to Shino and grabbed his arm before he jumped again and dragged them out of the window, looking for a quicker way to the area. Ibiki sighed and began to collect some of the test papers. All the while, he would chuckle at some of the answers that were written down due to how ridiculous some of them looked. When he came upon another paper, he picked it up and saw that there was a message written there. Dear Ibiki-san, I must say, the way you planned this test was brilliant in its own unique way. However, you need to work on your intimidation tactics. Anko did better than you when Kurenai-sensei had her test us a month or two ago. Perhaps you should use intimidating animals of your own, maybe a giant spider or something like that. Jokes aside, I would like you to keep an eye on Kabuto Yakushi, he seems very suspicious. My tenant says that he smells like wild snakes, ones that people wouldn't keep as pets. Not to mention he has information about me that only me, Hokage-sama, and a select few know about. He claims that he has heard rumors about it, but I've never used the secret information in public. Ever. Yours truly, Naruto Uzumaki. Ibiki's eyes widened and he stuffed the paper in his pocket before heading out of the room and making a beeline for the Hokage Tower. Training Ground 44. Isn't this the place your parents said to stay away from? I think so. I'm not really sure since they never said what it looked like. This is that place. I remember my father telling me to stay away from here, he even showed me this place personally so I would know. Naruto, Hinata, and Shino were standing with the other people who passed the first exam. They were all waiting just outside of the large fence that separated them from the location that their next exam was supposed to take place. It was a large forest that contained large trees that seemed to stretch towards the sky. There was a dark atmosphere that seemed to flow out from the forest that unnerved a lot of the people there. It didn't help that there were animals growling in hunger as they smelt the large group outside. There were quite a few legends about how the Forest of Death was created. A popular one was that Hashirama Senju became so angry at Madara Uchiha's desertion of the village that his chakra went wild and created the forest. However, the chakra used was very dark in nature and the forest became how it was today, and all the animals that lived in there were affected by the chakra, changing them into more feral creatures. Alright maggots, listen up. Anko shouted as she stood at the head of the group with a dangerous smirk on her face. This here is Training Ground 44, also known around here as the Forest of Death. In here is where you will all be taking the second part of the exam. This doesn't seem all that bad, Kiba said. Anko heard this and pulled out a kunai before launching it at the Inuzuka faster than most people could see. The kunai grazed Kiba's cheek and drew a small line of blood as Anko reappeared behind him with an arm wrapped around his shoulders. It's usually you loud ones who die first, Anko whispered as she stuck out her tongue and licked the blood, making Kiba shiver and Akamaru whimper. Sensing movement behind her, Anko quickly drew another kunai and turned around as a Kusa ninja appeared behind her. Now the weird part about this was that she was holding a kunai, with her freakishly long tongue. Your kunai Proctor-san, the Kusa genin said, she was somehow able to talk normally even though her tongue was out. Why thank you, Anko said, however you should be more careful on who you sneak up on, I might just kill you next time. My apologies, it's just that the sight of blood always makes me jumpy, not to mention you cut my hair with your kunai as well, the Kusa genin said as she handed Anko the knife and backed away. Kit, stay away from that one, her chakra is very disgusting. Not to mention she seems to have the reserves of one of your elite jonin, Kyubi said. Naruto nodded in confirmation. Well, it looks like we have some bloodthirsty ones this year, Anko commented as she jumped back to her previous spot. Now then, for this part of the exam each team is going to receive either an Earth Scroll or a Heaven Scroll. You will need to collect both scrolls and reach the tower that is in the middle of the forest in order to pass. So half of the teams here will be passing then? Naruto asked. That would be on a good day, Enko said. Normally, less than half of the teams here pass this part because of either the conditions in the forest, or if they just have bad luck. Now an important rule is that nobody should open the scrolls before they reach the tower. What happens if we do? Ino asked. Enko grinned and said, now, that would be telling. You're going to be in this forest for 5 days. 5 days? What about food? Choji wailed. Enko shot him a short glare, interrupting her and said, there are lots of animals and plants in the forest, just make sure that none of them try to eat you. Now then, once the 5 days are over, anyone still inside the forest will be retrieved by a group of jonin that will be on standby, if you're still alive that is. Oh yes. I almost forgot, each one of you needs to sign these forms. Enko then held up a small stack of papers as her fellow proctors began to pass them out to the crowd of genin. What are these? Fu asked. These are waivers that prevent Konoha from being responsible for your deaths. Cause some of you are going to die in this portion, Enko explained. You need to pass in all 3 in order for your team to retrieve their scroll. Team 8 had signed their forms and went into the tent to receive their scroll. They were handed a heaven scroll and were about to leave when Enko appeared in front of them with a grin on her face. Is there anything you need, Enko-san? Shino asked. Just wanted to wish my favorite trio of brats good luck before they went in, Enko said. She then leaned in closer and said, be careful in there, there's a lot of tough competition this year. Don't worry, Enko-san, we'll be alright, Hinata reassured her. Enko nodded and let the team pass. Those kids have grown on me, Enko thought. Maybe I'm turning soft. Enko shook her head and walked back to the small booth that contained the intercom system. She sat down as she waited for the word that all the teams were ready. How are we going to find the Uzumaki? Hamaguri asked. I say we just follow the smell of ramen. The Uzumaki were popular in ramen stands around the world, Mekajiki replied, earning him a smack in the head from his teammate. Last time I checked, neither one of us has the superior sense of smell Inuzuka possesses, Hamaguri informed him. Mekajiki snorted and said, then we'll just look for where the bugs gather. I think that one of his teammates is an Aburame. Good idea. And after we find him we'll just use our weapon to finish them off, Hamaguri added. Shujin looked at his teammates with a form of despair in his eyes. Uzumaki-san, I hope you are able to defeat me, he thought. So do we have a plan? The dark-skinned Kyumo male asked. Yeah! Find any team we come across and beat them to a pulp, the redhead shouted. But what if one of those teams contains the heir of a famous clan and we kill them? Then that clan may declare war on Kyumo after receiving the backing of their village. And if that happens then we may accidentally start the 4th Great Ninja War, the boy muttered. Shut up Omoi, the redhead yelled as she slammed her fist into Omoi's head, making him fall to the floor in a heap. The blonde sighed at her team's antics and began to think if being born in Kyumo was a curse. Do you remember our mission? The mummified Oto ninja asked his teammates. The spiky-haired one grinned and said, yep, go in there and kill the Uchiha. Just make sure that you don't mess up Yubaka, the female said as she cleaned her nails with a senbon. What did you say, bitch? The boy snarled as he took a step forward. That's enough, the mummy ordered as he grabbed his teammate's arm. Killing each other will only cause us to fail the mission. The boy and girl glared at each other before huffing and turning away. You two know what to do, right? The Kusa Genin with the long tongue asked her teammates. Yes, her teammates replied. Man, I hope we only run into one team, Shikamaru sighed. Fighting 2 of them would be so troublesome. Quit being a lazy ass. Ino scolded. I just hope we run into Sasuke-kun's team so I can show him that I'm stronger than Billboard Brow. Is that Uchiha the only thing on your mind? Shikamaru asked as he shook his head. Ino, are you sure that getting Sasuke's attention is worth it? Choji asked. Don't you remember how he acted in the academy? Ino huffed and said, he was going through a tough time, with his brother killing his clan and everything. Naruto goes through a tough time, too, Shikamaru said. Sure, he may have people who cares about him, but I once watched him as he went home and saw how his mood darkened when he went into his empty apartment. Why were you watching him? Choji asked. He seemed a little off that day, so I decided to follow him, Shikamaru explained. It was when I got home that I realized something. It was Mother's Day. One of the many holidays that Naruto never celebrates. Ino and Choji were silent at that, not knowing what to say. I hope we run into a youthful opponent inside this forest, Lee said as he performed one-handed push-ups while waiting for the exam to begin. I just hope that whoever we run into just gives us the scroll, Tenten muttered as she sharpened a kunai on a nearby rock. But Tenten, then we would not be able to show of our youthfulness, Lee complained. Niji huffed and turned away. It doesn't matter who we face, fate will decree us as the winners. Tenten just sighed in exasperation. Why couldn't she have been placed on a normal team? Think we're gonna run into anybody tough in there, boy? Kiba asked Akamaru. The white dog just barked his answer. Shaw! Nobody's stronger than Sasuke-kun, Sakura yelled. Kiba just rolled his eyes and asked, then what about Kakashi-sensei, or the Hokage? Or how about your not-so-secret admirer who has a love of green? Never mention that creep in my presence again, Sakura growled. Just make sure you two losers stay out of my way, Sasuke ordered. Hey! Who died and made you dictator? Kiba shouted. Shut up, dog breath. Don't talk to Sasuke-kun like that, Sakura screeched as she went to smash her fist into Kiba's head. In another universe, where Kiba was replaced by Naruto who wasn't smart, she may have landed that hit. But because it wasn't that universe, Kiba just moved out of the way as the fist passed him completely. Whatever, just don't lead us into fighting that Garagai, Kiba snorted as he turned away. What are the odds we'll run into a giant snake? Kankuro asked. Get real, the only one who can summon giant snakes is Orochimaru of the Sannin, Temari informed him, and he's over in his new village of Otogakure. Well, haven't you heard the story of how this forest was made? Kankuro asked. They said that the negative energy the Shodaime Hokage used changed the animals inside. I'm just guessing as to how they changed. It doesn't matter who or what we encounter, Gaara said. I will prove my existence inside this place. His siblings just paled slightly and kept to a safe distance from their younger brother. I wonder what kind of heart I'll get next, Naruto wondered. If you are looking for a new one, you would most likely capture a lightning one due to wind elements being a rarity, Shino told him. Naruto grinned and said, that sounds good. I want to get a lightning heart so I could get Kakashi-sensei to teach me that lightning jutsu I saw him use one time. He said that you would need the Sharingan to properly use it. Why would it require the Sharingan? Hinata asked. I think he said something about tunnel vision or something like that, Naruto told her. I didn't really understand it. Maybe he'll explain it once you get a lightning heart, Hinata suggested. Naruto nodded and faced the gate as he awaited it to open. What do we do if we run into that strange Kusa ninja? My insects would not even go near her because of how dark her chakra is, Shino asked. We should stay away from her. I checked her out with my eyes and couldn't stand the sight of her chakra, Naruto said. Her chakra looked so cold. Brr. I believe that it is good fortune that her team is on the other side of the forest, Shino said, Hinata nodding in agreement. Alright maggots and maggots, Anko's voice crackled over the loudspeaker, it's time to get the second exam underway. But before we begin, I have one last piece of advice for all of you. Beep. 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 Don't die. The gates opened and every single team raced into the forest. Anko grinned and sat down while pulling out a large box of dango. She popped one into her mouth and kept her ears open for any screams of terror or pain. Inside the forest, Naruto, Hinata, and Shino raced forward and landed on a tree branch. "Hold on a minute," Naruto said. "Kuchios no Jutsu." Naruto slammed his hand down and summoned a small fox with one tail and green markings over her orange fur. "Greetings Naruto-sama, I am Sasha, a hunter fox. Is there anything you need?" Sasha asked. "Yeah, I need you to keep an eye out for the original owner of this card," Naruto said as he pulled out one of Kabuto's ninja cards that he swiped when nobody was looking. "He's a teenager wearing a purple outfit and has glasses. Oh, and he has a Konoha headband on him too." "Of course, anything else?" Sasha asked as she took a good whiff of the scent on the card. "Yeah, meet us at the tower in the middle of the forest, that's where everyone who passes this exam will be at," Naruto told her. Sasha nodded and raced off into the foliage. "Why are you concerned about Kabuto-san, Naruto-kun?" Hinata asked. "He knew about my Jiongu, nobody is supposed to know about it," Naruto said. "Bachan has never put it on my medical records either." "No offense Hinata, but perhaps Hanabi-san talked about it outside of your compound," Shino suggested. Hinata shook her head. "Not possible, she made a pinky promise, and Hanabi-chan has never broken a pinky promise," Hinata told him. "I see, then we should be extra wary of him," Shino said. "Yeah, now let's go and see if we can find a team," Naruto said as he prepared to jump. But the minute he crouched down, Hinata grabbed his arm. "Naruto-kun, did you forget about something?" Hinata asked. No." "Why?" he asked. Shino just shook his head and pointed at Hinata's eyes. A light bulb lit up in the blonde's head. "Ah! My eyes!" Kyubi cried as the light blinded him. "Oh yeah! Hinata-chan can just use her Byakugan to see if there are any teams nearby," Naruto realized. Hinata then activated her Dojutsu and took a good look around. At the edge of her vision she could see a team of Kyumo ninjas stalking a team from Suna that didn't have Gaara. On the other side of her vision she could see a team of AIM ninjas that were heading in their direction. "There's a team from AIM coming this way," Hinata told her team. "This is the perfect place to set up a trap," Shino said as he sent out a few bugs. "What makes you so sure?" Naruto asked. Shino just pointed upwards and his friends directed their gazes there as well, their eyes widening when they saw what was above them. "Are those what I think they are?" Naruto asked. Shino nodded, making the blonde Genin grin while he pulled his teammates in close to make a plan. A few minutes later, the three AIM Genin appeared in the clearing. "Where are they?" one of them asked. "I thought you said that they were here." "They are here, I can sense their chakra in this area," the other one said. The next thing they knew, large leeches dropped down from the canopy above and began to suck on their chakra. The three AIM Genin cried out and struggled to get them off, but couldn't get them off. Eventually, they fell unconscious and the leech slowly inched their way off. "That was quick," Naruto commented as he and his teammates walked out of the foliage. These leeches absorb most of the chakra of their victims, only leaving a minuscule amount left before they detach and search for their next meal, Shino explained as he began to search the AIM ninja for their scroll. "It's another heaven scroll," Hinata sighed as she pulled out a scroll from the one she searched. "Let's take it in case we have to bargain for our freedom if we are captured," Shino suggested. Naruto and Hinata nodded and she pocketed the scroll before they started leaping from branch to branch again. Outside, Enko was doing two of her favorite pastimes, eating dango and listening to screams of pain and terror. As she was relishing in the screams of another group of genin that had fallen prey to something, a chunin dropped down next to her. "Excuse me Enko-san, but there's something that you should see," the chunin said. Enko sighed and pocketed her dango. "Alright, let's go." The chunin then lead Enko a half-mile out to a small gathering of chunin and jonin. "What's up?" Enko said as she dropped down. "We found 3 bodies here, all of them were Kusa genin," a jonin told her. "And? That's not much to make a fuss about," Enko said in an uncaring attitude. All we have to do is claim that they were inside the forest when they died. That would work, if this wasn't wrong with them, the Jonin said as he stepped away so Enko could get a look at the bodies. Enko gasped when she saw that they were all missing their faces, like someone just ripped them off. There's no mistake, Enko thought as she gripped her left shoulder, this is his Jutsu. Enko then whirled around and said to the Chunin and Jonin, go to the Hokage and tell him that the snake stalks the bird's nest. Once they all left, Enko then leapt towards the forest of death, thoughts of rage circling through her mind. With Team 8. Our favorite trio of genin dashed through the forest cautiously, not wanting to fall into another team's trap. Man, it's been an hour and we haven't seen anyone. Naruto whined. The next thing he knew, Hinata had bashed him on the head with her bow. Do you want everyone to know where we are? Hinata asked as she gave him a small glare. No ma'am, Naruto mumbled as he hung his head. Inside his cage, the Kyubi was rolling on the floor in laughter. WHTSSH, Kyubi made a whipping motion with his tail while shaking with laughter. Shut up. We're not even dating. Naruto yelled. Even though you're hoping to do so, Kyubi pointed out with a large grin on his face. I have no idea what you're talking about. Naruto stuttered. The next thing he knew, his head was filled with images of him and Hinata dating, kissing, and dancing, along with them doing other things. Gah! Naruto was distracted so much that he missed the next branch and landed headfirst onto the ground. Naruto-kun! Hinata cried as she and Shino leapt down to him. Are you okay? What happened? Nothing, I just missed the branch, Naruto lied, not being able to look at Hinata without blushing heavily. Hinata raised an eyebrow at his actions but shook her head. Suddenly, a loud scream reached their ears, and the trio of friends realized that it came from close by. We should go check it out, Naruto said as he leapt to his feet. But what if it's a trap? Shino asked. Hold on a minute, let me check, Hinata said as she activated her Byakugan. Her vision became more pronounced and changed into 360-degree vision. Pushing some more chakra into her eyes, Hinata was able to see farther than normal. The farthest she could see was about 50 meters, but she was able to see a little farther every day she trained. Looking around, she could see a female Kusa genin that was being attacked by a wild boar. The only problem was that the genin seemed to be out of weapons and had a sprained ankle. Another thing that Hinata noted was that she had red hair that was similar to Kushina and Natsumi. There's a Kusa genin about 20 meters from here and is being attacked by a wild boar. She's injured and it doesn't look like her teammates are around, Hinata said. Well, what are we waiting for? Let's go help, Naruto said. Is it wise? For all we know it could be a trap, Shino said. Hinata shook her head and told him that there was nothing suspicious in the area. So without further arguments, the trio leapt into the trees. They came upon the Kusa Kunoichi and saw that she was backed against a tree while clutching a scroll as a large boar stalked towards her. Having seen enough, Naruto leapt into the air and shot out his threads, stabbing the boar through its body and pinning it to the ground. As soon as he landed, Hinata fired an arrow and pierced the boar through its forehead, killing it instantly. Yo, Naruto greeted as he turned around and faced the redhead, Hinata and Shino jumping down next to him. Take the scroll. Just don't hurt me, the girl cried as she thrusted her scroll forward. Seeing the scroll, Shino sighed. We have no need of your scroll, even if we did, it wouldn't help us. Damn it. Why do we keep finding heaven scrolls? Naruto yelled, causing a flock of birds to fly away from the forest. He then took a deep breath to calm himself. Sorry about that, I'm just a little frustrated. That's putting it lightly, Kyubi muttered. Naruto just ignored him and turned his attention back to the girl. So what's your name? Naruto asked. I'm Karen, she answered. I'm Naruto Uzumaki. My name's Hinata Hyuga. Shino Aburame. Uzumaki? But I thought that they were all dead. Karen wondered. Nope, there's a small number of us here in Konoha, Naruto told her. Then, I'm not alone. Karen asked. What do you mean? Hinata asked. Well, my Ka-chan told me that we came from a powerful clan, Karen began, one that came from an area between Konoha and Kiri. I lived with her and my Nei-chan in Kusa before we were separated. All I know is that Ka-chan died and that my sister is somewhere. I knew it. Kyubi cried in triumph. What the hell are you talking about? Naruto roared back. This girl is an Uzumaki. The red hair is proof. Kyubi told him. Just because she has red hair doesn't mean that she's an Uzumaki, Naruto told him. True, but she has this particular shade of red that all Uzumaki possess. Nobody else has it, the bijou informed him. Naruto then took a good look at Karen's hair and realized that it was the exact same type of red that Kushina and Natsumi had. You are an Uzumaki, Naruto stated. How can you tell? Shino asked. Ka-chan told me that the Uzumaki clan possess a certain type of red hair, Naruto began. I'm not a redhead because my father's genes are apparently stronger than hers. But back to the main topic, Karen here has the Uzumaki shade of red hair. Too bad it doesn't help me back in Kusa, Karen muttered as she rubbed her ankle. Seeing their confusion, she elaborated. I'm not really liked in Kusa, people don't really like me and they treat me like a tool because of my advanced sensory abilities. How about you join Konoha? Naruto suggested. I'll become a nuke-nin then. Karen shouted. Not really, Shino said, you're inside the forest of death in a survival test. Kusa will most likely think that you and your team perished inside here and they will eventually forget about you, allowing you to live a life here without fear of being discovered. That actually sounds like a good idea. Naruto said with a large grin. Wait a minute. Hinata shouted. What about your team? Those bastards died against some Tsunagai, Karen said. I told them that he was too strong for them. So they ran into Gaara. Naruto muttered. You know that guy? Karen screamed. We met before the exam started, Naruto explained. He said that mother would enjoy my blood, whatever that means. We should move out now, we're still in need of a scroll, Shino said. Right, so you ready to go? Naruto asked his relative. Karen sent him a glare and said, in case you haven't noticed, my ankle's sprained. Naruto shrunk under her glare and Hinata went to healing Karen. She activated her Byakugan and struck several points on the ankle to help heal it. What are you doing? Karen asked. There are tenketsu on the body that speed up the healing process, Hinata explained. I'm striking those tenketsu so that your ankle will heal faster. 1. After a few minutes, Karen's ankle was better, a little sore, but now she was able to travel without any problems. Okay, let's go, Naruto said as he and his friends jumped into the trees. They were traveling for about 10 minutes when an ominous aura covered the forest. What is that? Hinata asked, shivering a bit. I don't know, but it's making my insects very uncomfortable, Shino said. It was true, his insects were buzzing at an alarming rate. Let me check it out, Karen said as she made a few hand seals and closed her eyes. They then shot open and had a panicked look in them. There's a large amount of chakra being released, and there's a dark look to it. It's the Kusa ninja, Kyubi said. Naruto mentally nodded and said, alright, let's head away from there and try to find another team. But before he could say anything else, Naruto was forced to dodge as a blast of water impacted where he once was. Damn, I missed, Mekajiki cursed as he and his team appeared. I told you should have aimed it more to the left, Hamaguri reprimanded him. I'm guessing that you're here for our scroll? Shino asked as he stared at the two Kiri ninja. Hamaguri smirked and said, the scroll's just the bonus, what we're here for is the death of the Uzumaki. Teammates' eyes widened at this revelation and they immediately took a defensive formation, Karen taking her own form of combat. We're going to finish what our ancestors couldn't finish all those years ago. Mekajiki shouted. Just try, you'll be dead before you even realize it, Naruto said as his eyes hardened. Hamaguri then took a good look at Naruto before something clicked in his head. Hey, doesn't he look like the Yandere Hokage? Mejikiki tilted his head a little and said, you're right. Take away those scars on his face and he would look just like him. Naturally, this little tidbit of information sent teammates' heads for a spin. I should have known. Kyubi roared as he banged his head against the steel bars of the cage. Now that they mention it, Naruto does resemble the Yandere in some way, Shino thought. Could it be possible that he's his son? I never really noticed, but it could be possible that Naruto-kun's related to the Yandere in some way, Hinata thought. The Yandere never had a son, didn't he and his family die during the Kyubi attack? Karen said to herself. Could it be possible? Is my dad really the Yandere? Naruto thought. But, why would he do this to me? Are you regretting me being here already? Kyubi asked, a small pang of hurt in his voice. No, I'm just shocked at this, Naruto thought. I'll have to talk to Ka-chan and Gigi when this is over. Hey, we could send his head to Iwa and get a ton of money for this. Mekajiki realized. Hamaguri grinned and began to imagine himself swimming in a large pool of money. And we could sell the Hyuga girl to Kumo, then we'll be set for life. Hamaguri said with a large smirk. Shujin was quiet the whole time. If he's really related to the Yandere, then he would have a great knowledge of seals, maybe I can truly be free. But it looks like he doesn't even know, so it looks my hopes haven't been answered. He then looked up and sent a silent prayer. Dear Kami, I only ask you one thing. If I die here, make sure that my Ototo is able to live in a place where he will find happiness. Enough talk. Let's kill them and get rich. Hamaguri shouted as he jumped forward and pulled out his tanto, aiming it at Naruto's head. Naruto quickly raised his claw and caught the blade before he was pushed back when Hamaguri kicked him in the chest. Teammate and jumped back, with Karen jumping after Hinata. I'll go after the Aburame, Mekajiki said as he jumped down. I'll take the Kunoichi, Hamaguri said with a lust-filled grin on his face. Mekajiki groaned and said, make sure you think with your upper head this time. Don't worry, I'll save one for you, his teammate said as he laughed. And you, worthless scum, will be taking the Uzumaki. Shujin nodded and the Kiri Genin leapt after their targets. Shino versus Mekajiki. Shino cursed as he landed, he was forced away from his teammates and had no idea where they were. What was worse was that he had no idea what these Kiri Genin were capable of aside from their weapons. Mekajiki suddenly landed across from him with a smirk on his face. He took out his Kozurigama and began to twirl the chain that had the weight on the end. An Aburame, and the air no less, this should be interesting, the Kiri Genin said as he took a step forward. He then jumped back as a small swarm of insects shot towards him. He freed his hands and began to make seals. Suiton, Tepidama. Mekajiki cried as he shot small spheres of water at the insects, forcing them to scatter, lest they be drowned. Shino frowned and pulled out his swords before he rushed the Kiri Genin and slashing at him with one of the blades. Mekajiki blocked the strike with the chain before he jumped back to avoid Shino's second strike. Shino then thrusted a sword forward and scratched Mekajiki's side. Interesting, I've always heard that the Aburame were ones who fight from afar, Mekajiki commented as he sent the weight at Shino. I decided to become unique and try something that only a small few in my clan have done, Shino explained as he dodged the attack and went to slash his opponent's chest. The Kiri ninja jumped back, but still received a small cut on his clothes. Mekajiki swung his Kozurigama like a lasso and sent it flying towards Shino. He ducked underneath it and rolled to the side when his opponent pulled on the chain, forcing the blade to come back to him. Shino then raced forward and threw a punch at his opponent, who blocked it with his forearm. Mekajiki jumped back while firing a Tepidama at Shino, preventing him from following. Well, I suppose it's time to end this, Mekajiki said as he prepared to throw the weight towards Shino. You're right, Shino said as he sheathed his katanas, this battle's over. Giving up ALR, Mekajiki was cut off as he suddenly felt tired. Sensing an itching sensation on his legs, he looked down and saw that his legs were covered by insects. How? Mekajiki gasped as he struggled to stay on his feet. When you blocked my punch before, I planted a female insect on you, Shino explained. She released a scent that only her male counterparts could detect. I had them burrow through the ground and crawl up your legs to drain your chakra when you jumped back. To think that I've been bested by a bloodline scum. Mekajiki groaned as he fell to the floor in a heap. Shino let out a sigh of relief and jumped away to find his friends. Hinata and Karen versus Hamaguri. The unnaturally haired girls jumped back at their opponents slammed onto the ground where they were, his sword stuck into the ground. He, I get two lovely ladies all to myself, Hamaguri chuckled as his eyes roamed over the two females' bodies. He picked up his sword and ran his hand along the metal. Hinata repressed the urge to shiver as she saw his eyes land on her developed chest. Only one person was able to stare at her like that, even if he didn't, as far as she knew. She dashed forward and went for the traditional Juken strike to the chest. Hamaguri dodged it and went to slash at her with his sword. Hinata jumped back, but part of her jacket was cut, revealing the deep purple shirt underneath. A shame that you've got a bloodline, you would have actually been someone I would consider having my way with, Hamaguri sighed as he made several hand seals. Suiton, Hahanryu. Hamaguri spat out a sphere of water into his hand and threw it at Hinata and Karen. They jumped away as it shot through the trees behind them. Hak Kushu! Hinata shouted as she sent a blast of condensed air at Hamaguri, who was caught off guard and sent back into the trees. Hinata prepared to activate her Byakugan when Karen stopped her. Save your chakra, my sensing abilities will find him, she said. Hinata nodded and loaded an arrow into her bow before waiting for Karen to find the Kiri Genin. There! Karen pointed in the foliage. Hinata quickly aimed and let the arrow fly through the air and hit Hamaguri, who let out a cry of pain. Hinata then jumped into the air and let loose another arrow. Hamaguri jumped out of the tree, revealing that he had an arrow embedded in his shoulder. Bloodline whore! Hamaguri snarled as he slashed at her with his sword. Hinata dodged the slashes and tried to find an opening. On one particular swing, Hamaguri threw too much of his weight forward and lost his balance. Hinata capitalized on this and landed several strikes on him, closing several of his tenketsu before he jumped back and tried to get back some feeling in his arm. You're lucky we want some money from Kyumo, if I had any say in this you would be dead after I break you. Hamaguri growled as he got a crazed look in his eyes. He then had to jump back to avoid the kunai thrown by Karen. Suiton, Mizurappa! Hamaguri roared as he let a large blast of water loose. Hinata grabbed Karen and jumped away. Hinata then let another arrow fly and watched as it impacted against Hamaguri's thigh. He howled in pain, especially since this one was charged with chakra and closed the surrounding tentetsu. Hamaguri stumbled to the Grudi and Hinata dashed forward, closing the tenketsu on his legs and arms. The two girls watched as Hamaguri fell onto the floor in a crumpled heap. Come on, we have to help Naruto-kun and Shino-kun, Hinata said. Karen nodded and prepared to leave. Suiton, water binding jutsu! Hamaguri shouted as he slammed his working hand onto the ground. The next thing the girls knew, their legs were entrapped by water, preventing them from moving. Hinata couldn't turn around to fire a hack kushu at him, unless she could turn her upper body completely around. Don't think that you've won just yet, you freak, Hamaguri said as he weakly pulled himself to his feet. He then picked up his sword and slowly walked towards Hinata. I'll take care of you first, then I'll be able to have fun with the attractive one. 3, Hamaguri said as he prepared to drive his tanto into Hinata's right arm. Naruto Keiyuen! Hinata screamed, hoping that her love could save her. Naruto versus Shujin. Naruto landed on the ground in a crouch and let out a snarl of frustration. He was being targeted again, except this time it wasn't for him being the Jinchuriki of the Kyuubi. He looked up as the cloaked Kiri Genin landed on a branch above him. "I'm sorry," Shujin said as he kept his head down. Naturally, this confused Naruto. "For what?" he asked. "For having to fight you. If I had a will of my own, I would have never been here," Shujin answered. "What do you mean, if you had a will of your own?" Naruto asked. Kyuubi listened in, slightly interested in what was happening. "Have you heard about the bloodline purges in Kiri?" Shujin asked. "I'm one who possesses a bloodline, and they decided to test out a seal on me that would make me their weapon. It makes me a prisoner of my own body." Naruto growled, angry that anyone could be treated like that. "Can the seal be removed?" Naruto asked. Shujin shook his head. "Not unless you are a true master of Fuinjutsu. It's so intertwined with my body that any attempt to remove it would literally rip me apart. I heard the sealers say that it was based on the little knowledge they had of the Hyuga's caged bird seal." This made Naruto scowl, seeing that the Hyuga's seal was causing even more pain, even if they didn't know it. "Before we fight, I would like to know your name," Naruto said as he crouched down low and held his claws out. Shujin reached up and pulled back his hood, revealing his slightly pale skin and black hair that had a little white in it. He had dark green eyes and 2 red dots on his forehead. "My true name has been forgotten, all I have is the name my enslavers gave me. I am Shujin Kaguya." Shujin then pulled off his robe as it hung around his waist. He reached up to his shoulder and gripped it tightly before he began to pull on it. Naruto's eyes widened as he watched his opponent pull out a bone that was shaped like a sword. But what really caught his attention was the seal on the middle of his chest, where it had the kanji for control in a sickly yellow color. "This is the Kekkei Genkai of the Kaguya clan, the Shikatsu Myaku," Shujin said as he leapt forward and aimed his sword at Naruto. The young blonde shook himself back to reality and moved to the side. Shujin's sword stuck itself into the ground, but he used it as a handstand to send a kick that landed on Naruto's chest. Naruto flipped in the air and landed on his feet. He looked up to see Shujin right on top of him with his sword ready to stab him in the gut. Naruto quickly spun around and the sword passed right by him while he backhanded him away. "Katan, Gokakyu no Jutsu!" Naruto shouted as he breathed out a large fireball at the Kiri Genin. Shujin jumped over the flames and threw his sword at Naruto. He caught it with his gauntlet and jumped back as Shujin landed where he was with several bones popping out of his fist. "You're good," Naruto said as he undid the belt of his coat and activated his Sharingan, keeping it under a small genjutsu. "Thank you, it has been a long time since I've been complimented for my prowess in battle," Shujin told him as he pulled out 2 bones from his shoulder. He then dashed forward and went for an X-slash. Naruto jumped back and expertly threw his trenchcoat off where it landed on a branch. One of Crab's claws shot out of Naruto's back and gripped Shujin's arm. Naruto then whirled around and had the claw release Shujin as it threw him into a tree. Shujin got up and raced to Naruto as curved bones sprouted from his arms. He began to twirl around like a top and Naruto made some quick seals and slammed his hands on the ground, bringing up an wall of earth to try and block him. Shujin was momentarily stopped by the wall before he vaulted over it and made a downward slash against Naruto. The blonde Jinchuriki backflipped away while Crab's mask opened its mouth and fired a blast of water. Shujin dove to the side and avoided the attack. "I must say, your powers are very interesting," Shujin said. "I have never seen anything like it. As far as I know, I'm the second one with this, the other one having it during the time of the Shodaime Hokage," Naruto told him. He then put his hands into the Tora seal. "Jiongu, activate!" All 3 of his masks shot out of his back and landed around him. Shujin was surprised and couldn't avoid Titan as he landed a rock-hard fist into Shujin's gut, sending him into a tree. The Kaguya pulled himself out and got back to his feet. "Go!" Naruto commanded as Fox dashed forward and head-butted Shujin back into the tree. Titan then jumped into the air and dove down to slam his fist into the Kaguya, who managed to get out of the way. But before he could do anything, he was forced to duck down as Crab shot out a barrage of tepadamas from his claws. Shujin danced through the watery bullets and was about to attack the water heart when he had to jump away from the fire bullets that impacted the area he was previously occupying. Amazing, I've never had this much fun when I was sparring back in Kiri, Shujin said as he watched Naruto and his hearts. Naruto Kun. Hinata's scream rang out through the surrounding area. Naruto's eyes widened and he quickly turned to see Hinata about to lose her arm to Hamaguri. In a burst of speed, Naruto channeled the Kyuubi's chakra and raced over there. Hinata closed her eyes in fear, but then she felt herself being roughly shoved to the side. She looked over and saw Naruto standing where she was trapped. She looked on in horror and couldn't utter a word as she saw the sword descend. Naruto looked at Hinata, thankful that his best friend was safe. He then looked at the sword as it descended. It didn't help that his Sharingan showed that it would probably kill him. He knew that he wouldn't really die, just lose a heart and get revived, but the thought of dying installed a good amount of fear into his mind. Unconsciously, he channeled more chakra into his Sharingan, and his vision became extremely clear, and he unconsciously did something that made his whole body feel funny. He also felt himself shout out the name of whatever he was doing. Kamui. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed. If you enjoyed this what if and want to see next part of it, comment down below and let me know. Also share this video with your friends. See you in the next video. Peace.